Hi there, you're listening to Unnatural Selection, the show about newsy type stuff and things. My name is George.
My name is Tom.
And my name is Adam.
And with our powers combined, we are Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com.
Gentlemen, before we go any further, can I just get one of these into the...
Didn't hear anything.
Didn't come through. Damn it. I'm opening a
hear
beer.
it,
I'm
Adam.
going to give you an audio description. I'm opening a beer, and now I'm taking a sip.
The wild
Thankfully,
man,
didn't hear that either.
the lumberjack opens a beer at his desk.
Well, the reason why I'm opening a beer and is because I won't be a lumberjack in over a week because Victorian lockdown is announced that it's going to end on Thursday.
Yes.
Is your beard gonna disintegrate them? Is your beard like Cinderella's pumpkin cart? It's just gonna change when it hits midnight.
No beard
exactly
at
right.
after 11:59. It just dissolves like so many characters in the Marvel universe after Thanos clicks his fingers.
Spoilers.
Literally going to get a hedge trimmer and just like have a go at my face, which is not advised. Don't do that. And it will disappear.
Okay.
That seems very dangerous. Practical, but dangerous.
I had to go and sign some documents in person with my mum yesterday, and so it's the first time she's seen me in some time since my dad passed away, actually. And she took one look at me, looked at my head, and was like, "Been cutting your own hair, have you?" I was like, "Oh, thanks, Mum."
She doesn't miss a thing.
Nice to see you as well.
Does not miss a thing.
Judgmental as fuck. Thanks, Mum.
She used to be a hairdresser, did she, or something? Because
No.
I noticed when I got my hair cut last year after our extended lockdown, they immediately were like, "So an at-home job, I see." Like they just, it's their expertise of hair cutting. They can just tell.
My son looks like shit, does he?
Trick. Yeah.
Thanks, Mum. It's good to see you also. It's
it's not so good to see you, George.
You look terrible.
Yeah, you look like trash.
I thought I did a pretty good job, but that's okay. So yes, as Adam mentioned, Fuck Party 7.0 is now here as of Thursday. Some of those because we've hit our 70% target, and as we learned from the presser today, as Dan Andrew said, 70% is not 80% because 80% is 80%. So we can't.
Yep.
That as it is always with these phased reopenings, they're like, well, we did this thing for the reopening. Why can't we do the next thing? And if we can't do the next thing, why can't we do it? It's because it's like a phased reopening. And this is how phases work. And the journalists are like, what about... No, sorry, Dan, just over here. Greg from fucking Morning Herald. I was just wondering if we can go bowling. Why can't we go swimming? And it's just like, it's just an hour and a half of those fucking dumb questions. It's like, okay, this is the roadmap. We are going to open up. You're going to have, whatever it is, 10 people allowed, vaccinated in your place of residence out this day. It's like things are going to start opening up. And it's just like, I just hate the dumb questions of like, well, if this thing is allowed, why isn't this incremental additional thing allowed? Anyway, but it's good that we're opening up. That's the long,
especially when it's not something that's kind of like, it's not like they're asking about like things that you could say are quite maybe overlooked, like, sort of hang on, have you actually considered like this thing that might benefit this like group of people that maybe is a bit overlooked because it might not have been as high on your priority list, but it's kind of fucking people over. No, it's more like, why can't I go play golf?
I want to sorry, Daddy Andrews, I want to go to the whiskey club. Why isn't there a... it just seems like it's a
party to throw.
Yeah, it's legitimately just sounds like journalists airing personal grievances rather than actually asking legitimate questions. But that's personal opinion.
I mean, the thing is, these settings that they're going to have in place, in theory, if we keep trundling along, unless vaccinations stop suddenly, I don't know, maybe the vaccine truck to Melbourne like crashes or something, but like in theory, we should be. There's one truck going back and forth.
It's just a single truck that gets pulled over by Tony Soprano. Go, hey, it'd be a shame if something happened to these Pfizers, hey.
Yeah, you'll chuck them in the back along with all the DVD players.
Oh, lots of laser discs. That was the Laserdisc players back in the day.
But in theory, these settings will only stay in place for like a week and a bit or
like
something.
10 days or
yeah.
something, yeah.
So, you know, I mean, you can ask as many questions as you want, but like they'll be irrelevant within the space of like a blink of an eye.
It's like
Adam, aren't you aware that October 22 through November 5 is like perfect golf days?
This is true, Tom. Actually, no, I was aware of that. Yeah,
they have to do it now. They just have to do it now. Golf can't be played at literally any
They can
other
already
time.
play golf, though. That's the thing, isn't it?
I know. I'm just pulling an example out of my ass. Just like
you should
mini
definitely
bullshit.
lawn bowls. I reckon lawn bowls is probably much more.
As we are
convenient.
not yet middle-aged men, this can't become a golf podcast just yet. We'll get there.
Just yet.
Don't worry, we will get there.
I'm sure we will get there.
We've been doing this since 2010, so we've been doing this 11 and a bit years now. At this clip, we will, at some point, you know, become middle-aged men discussing golf on a podcast. But we are not yet there. We're still eating the rich.
We'll let Tom out in a minute in terms of there will be a point later in this podcast where we let the eat. I can't even do it. My brain won't do it.
Are you somehow mixing up Eat the Rich and Let Them Eat Cake from Marie Antoinette and just sort of like mashing them together to be like, let them eat rich. Wait.
Let them eat. Let's eat the rich, Tom. We're gonna
let them eat wealthy. Hang on.
We're gonna let's eat the rich Tom out. Later,
you know what we should call him? $1 trillion Tom. Because he arcs up whenever we start talking about the $1 trillion coin.
I could get behind that.
$1 trillion Tom. So lots of stuff to talk about.
To the Federal Reserve, baby.
Victoria's got our phased opening coming up, so that'll be good. I will enjoy seeing real humans and their faces again. And
as well as the fake humans. I mean, you know, don't forget them.
Fake humans are pretty good in my Oculus headset, virtual reality headset, but yeah, not as good as real humans. And I don't get motion sickness in real life, so that's fun. Lots of stuff.
Start local with the Vic.
Yes. So Victoria. Wait, which Victoria? We're talking about the Victorian.
The branch stacking.
Branch stacking, yes.
The fun branch stacking.
Some good old branch stacking.
So it's funny. We can be like, yeah, fuck yeah, Labor today, but it's kind of like, here's the keys, and we're going to jingle the keys over here to the baby. Where a week ago it was like, let's put the branch stacking, just get it in the closet. Let's just hide it away. Branch stacking. We've talked about branch stacking in the past on this show, and that pretty much everyone does it a bit. Like the Liberals have done it, the Greens have done it.
Who doesn't?
And particularly
who doesn't
in Victoria,
love a good stacked branch?
Yeah, love a good stacked branch. Branch stacking is the thing where basically you get lots of new members. It's like all of a sudden one particular branch will just have a lot of new members that just rock up, pay their fee, sign their form just in time for the next pre-selection, and they'll cast their votes for a particular candidate, and lo and behold, it's the person that everyone wanted to win.
And the way people sort of facilitate this branch stacking is generally like they'll pay out of pocket. They go, okay, I want to be the member, or the person who's selected to be the person who's put forward for this party. So say the Labor Party in this instance. I want to be the candidate for the Labor Party in this seat. I'm going to pay all of my mates that are in this area to come and join the Labor Party in this area, and they're all going to vote for me or vote how I tell them to vote.
Essentially like they're paying their mates' membership fees.
Yeah.
It's just like, you just have to sign a thing, like, I'll take care of all the money part of it. Just bulk up the numbers and vote for me, please.
So it's like, I don't know, it's just like...
it's literally undermining the base level of democracy.
Sure.
It is like...
But it's also like real sad that people like Anthony Byrne, who engaged in this practice, it just feels like they're having to... It's like when you're in primary school and you're just like buying people a sausage roll to be your friend. It's sad. It's just a bit of a loser, Anthony.
Yeah.
So
it's stacking the deck and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's not illegal as of yet, but it is against at least the Labor Party's code, like their rules.
Both the major parties have rules against branch stacking.
Oh, both have it?
Yeah.
I wasn't aware if the Liberal Party did.
So whilst it's not technically illegal, if you are doing things like signing up dead people or putting fake addresses or any of that sort of stuff, that's obviously illegal. That's fraud. But if it's just a case of like I'm paying my mate Bob to come in here and say, hey Tom, Adam, here's $100. Go into this room and say George is the absolute tits. Then it's
I'd probably do it, to be fair.
I mean, thank you. Is that all it would cost? $100?
Yeah, I wouldn't do it for less than 200.
I feel like, having been friends for a decade, I feel like I should be able to count on your vote. I shouldn't need to buy it for...
Things are real tight now, George.
If we hadn't been friends for a decade, it would have been 400.
That's hurtful.
So,
yeah. Okay. It's kind of like... I feel like it's kind of table stakes corruption. The Murdoch media is sort of going full Muppet and waving their hands around. Oh, Labor Party corruption. Dan Andrews is being investigated by IBAC. Oh my God, it's exactly the same thing as Gladys Berejiklian. And it's like, no. Like,
not quite.
Not really. There's no indication that Dan Andrews directly is being investigated. A couple of ministers...
We should give context.
Resigned.
We haven't actually explained what's happening.
Yeah, so, okay, you go. You talk.
Well, just basically IBAC. So that's the Victorian version of ICAC.
Yes, the Independent Broad-Based Anti-Corruption Commission.
Basically, been looking into it. And, so basically they were like, okay, you guys have... They started questioning people, and it became pretty clear that last election, there was a bunch of... In the Victorian state parliament, there were people that are probably currently elected that probably shouldn't have been. Victorian Labor Minister Luke Donnellan has resigned from cabinet, which is something like the 7th Labor MP to resign in the last couple of years since Andrews has been in power.
Oh, I did hear an allegation of $1,400 worth of taxpayers' funds being used on postage stamps. Watch out.
Basically and it's also linked back up to the federal aspect of it as well. So Mr. Byrne, so as you said, what's his name? Anthony Byrne, who's a long-standing Labor member. Like he's isn't a minister, obviously, because he's in the opposition, but he's been there since 1999 and the federal seat of Holt. He's actually since now resigned.
Yeah,
from
he was the deputy chair of the Parliamentary
Yeah.
Joint Committee on Intelligence and Security, which oversees spy agencies and that sort of stuff. So,
which is a pretty beefy committee, that one.
Yeah, big deal. And he's resigned from those posts, but he's still a member of Parliament. And so a lot of the conversation this week is, why hasn't Albo stepped in and kicked him off, kicked him out of Parliament?
And Anthony's obviously gone to the default response. So I'm going to go to the script here, obviously, with this here. But the default response is we have to wait for the inquiry.
Got to wait for the results of the inquiry. We don't want to preempt the inquiry.
Yeah.
Even though he's admitted doing all of these things.
Admitted doing it. He freely admitted on his own
tape
will.
at IBAC,
Yeah. So the inquiry hasn't finished, but the part of the inquiry where he said he did the thing has finished.
Yeah, the part where he said he did the thing, which one would argue is the most important part of the inquiry.
Yeah, kind of. Well, with relation as to whether or not you're going to kick him out of Parliament, yes.
I'm just going through the How to Politically Die and Be Resurrected in Australia, a beginner's guide. Just self-plug there.
This is a little pamphlet that Adam put together a couple weeks ago. So it applies to this political crises, but in fact, all political crises, as it turns out as well.
So we're up to step 7.
Okay.
So that's resign from your ministership and proceed to the backbench because it makes it look bad in the papers. So what we're waiting for at the moment is if the matter goes away, we go straight to step 12, which is get made a minister again or whatever position you previously had because your party is full of fuck ups and it's the 10 cabinet reshuffle they've had. Or obviously if it doesn't go away, then you go to step 9, which is you actually resign from step 8, where you resign from Parliament, because it's better to go out on your own terms, obviously, before being kicked out.
Yeah. You will, of course, be eligible for the next election, which will be happening shortly, though. So
yes, and you can then stack the branch the branch that you have previously stacked. You can then use to get back into power.
Yeah,
using probably the inquiry that's just happened as a way to learn how to do it better this time, so it's not to be caught in future.
Exactly.
I agree that branch stacking is bad, right? Like you're getting people in that may not necessarily represent the seat that they're being put forward for, right? Like it is a fundamentally not good thing for democracy for that to happen. I would also agree it's like table stakes level corruption. It's also just like the corruption that we know political parties engage with all day, every day, all of the time. This is the problem, though, George.
Like this base level. This is the brick upon which the entire political system sits. And if the brick is fucking made of cheese or I don't know something else that's not very solid, cheese is really solid, but you can melt it. So we'll go with that analogy.
But I would like to clarify that these people that get put forward, you know, the voters in their districts do have the opportunity to vote them down if they don't think they're good candidates that represent their electorates well.
Yeah, but turns out Bob, who hasn't had an interest in the Labor Party, but he's great mates with Anthony Byrne. He's like, oh yeah, well I'll do what you want because you're going to pay me $100 or whatever. Basically, like he doesn't care.
But Bob
doesn't give a shit.
I would like some acknowledgement that there is a level of gradation with corruption, like $600 million car parks on this end of the, you know, literally putting hundreds of millions of dollars into marginal seats to win an election for the express purpose of buying votes before an election is on this end of the spectrum. And then like getting me mates together to make sure that I get in at the branch levels on this side. Like it is still corruption, but it is not the same. Do you think
you would have one without the other? That's what I'm trying to say, is that if you're starting here and this is your starting point, it's not too big a leap.
It's not great
to then be like, let's fucking pork barrel.
And to be clear, essentially, you know, it's bad and anyone that's caught doing it should resign. If I was someone who was running for office, this is not the kind of behavior that I would want to be engaged in or associated with, and it is against the rules if it's not expressly illegal. And that's probably why I don't run for politics, is because I'm not willing to engage into the cutthroat, nasty nature of politics. Yes, because I won't cheat. Exactly right. It does.
And what were you going to say?
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say that this is like, I agree with George in that there are tiers of corruption that might be like stuff that should be more worthy of ire, but at the same time, like this is the beginning step that, like, this is what allows someone who is like likely to be quite a corrupt piece of shit to trick their way into the system.
This is Heisenberg cooking meth for the first time.
Yes, literally.
Sure. No, that's the analogy I would have picked.
No, 100%.
No, go for it.
I definitely agree. It's like, it's if this is how things start, you can only imagine how things go throughout the rest of the process. And I think the film called Big Deal by Christian Van Vuren and Craig Rucastle from The Chaser, that they released just recently, sort of goes into this, where they're talking about money and how it sort of influences people during the political process and how much of that has been normalized.
Is that on iView at the moment, I believe?
It's going to be on iView shortly. I saw an advanced screening through some Democracy Action Network, something or other, that I got an email for. So that will be on iView this month, sometime in October. It's called Big Deal. Excellent film. Would thoroughly recommend it. But yeah, it just shows how, like, from the from the starting block, so much of this process is corrupted. It's not good.
Yeah. I've always said that if you want to fix national politics, you've got to start at this level. You've got to start in the branches, and you've got to get that shit sorted out.
It's something that actually has made me think about my actual involvement in electoral politics. Like, obviously, we talk a lot about politics on the show, and you know, we all vote because we have to. But like, I would choose to vote anyway, even if I didn't have to. We vote come election time. We vote at the state level, we vote at the local level, we vote at the federal level. But it makes me think about, like, okay, if I really do want to see change, like what's happening in a lot of these inner city seats, like Zali Steagall, the independent who's got a real, motivation around climate change. And that's the thing that's causing all of these LNP ministers in the inner cities to sort of shit their pants a little bit, is these, groundswell of independence, grassroots independence that are coming up and forcing them to sort of, get their heads into gear in regards to climate change in particular. Like there are well-intentioned people that are actually making real physical and the Big Deal film goes into that in some depth, and sort of looking at this movement and how it started. It's quite inspirational. This Voices of movement. That's sort of getting community input and sort of building a framework for independence in a couple of dozen seats nationally. It's it just made me reflect on like, okay, maybe I do need to actually get involved in my like. It's so boring. This is the thing, local like state politics and like party politics and being a card carrying member of a party is like deliberately fucking boring. So
it's just like opening up your email address for spam. That's
meetings,
what it is. It's like...
and it's you're just hanging out in some fucking dusty room with Daryl, who's RSL Club, who's talking about fucking how vaccines aren't real, and you like engaging with the community as someone who's disdainful of the public a lot of the time. May not, it may not be the most fun environment, but I think that's kind of on purpose. I think the reason that these branch stacking efforts can be successful is because so many people are disengaged from the local 100%. Level politics around them. And I think that's by design.
Bob needs to get his shit together. Bob needs to not wait for Anthony Byrne to bloody pay his membership fee. Bob needs to get off his ass and actually do his own research, get involved. Tom, would you join a political party at a branch level?
In principle, yes, but I suppose it's a thing of, I think a thing that I'd be really poor at in that regard is that, so much of what we talk about in like getting political change, especially in sort of the current kind of almost two-party system that we practically have, is the compromise. And that's not to say that I'm bad at compromising. Like, I am happy to like compromise with people, but like, I know people who have joined the Labour Party, for example, like, signed up and like not branch stacked, at least to my knowledge, but have signed up of their own volition to work with it and stuff like that.
Sorry, Tom, I'm just getting a call from IBAC. I don't know if that's in relation to you. It just says...
If it's about the dry cleaning on that sack with a $sign on it, it's overdue for weeks.
I don't know about that, mate. It doesn't seem like a very likely story.
But no, anyway, so them wanting to get involved and all that sort of stuff sounds great, but then at the same time, it's kind of like, I feel there's not enough. Like, I feel I would struggle with the not being. I hate using this word, but not being radical enough. It'd be lots of things of like, hey, we should be pushing for this, and everyone will be like, hold your horses, mate, and I'll be like, well, then what the fuck are we doing here?
Have you tried not doing anything at all? Have you tried maintaining the status quo, Tom? I think you'll find the status quo is a ye old faithful. I do wonder about that. It's like, how much influence, like, if you're going to sink all this time and effort into being a political partisan, are you actually going to be affecting change at the branch level? Is that going to affect, especially when you hear about these things like branch stacking, you go, okay, well, it all seems like sort of
with that
stacked against you. Like, what can you actually do to affect political change?
Well, it's like they could actually legislate to actually make branch stacking,
illegal,
a crime.
Yeah, I mean,
but but then that's the thing, right? That's like we've been saying, hey, you should. Legislate's the wrong word, but sort of like, you should implement a federal ICAC. And they're like, what, are you kidding? None of us would have our jobs if there was a federal ICAC. We're not going to do that. So it's like, let's make branch stacking illegal. Mate, we'd all go to jail. We're not going to do that. And it's like, oh, well, of course you won't. And now here we are.
And what's hilarious is that like it's a Labour Party policy to not do this. And like, you'd think that would be like a condition of your membership would be to not branch stack. If you break the rule, then your membership is void or something like that.
Yeah,
but they're all just like, we can't afford the numbers.
I do think that this is something that is different about left and right politics, though. Like, I feel like if this was something that happened in the Liberal Party, you'd have all their partisans coming out and saying, nah, it didn't fucking happen, or even if it did, it doesn't fucking matter, and you guys are all fucking political partisan hacks for even bringing it up. Whereas we on the left are like, yeah, that was corrupt and that was bad and those guys should resign. And so now we're just at a disadvantage because when we see corruption, we care about it. And like, we as lefties own it and say, no, that's not good. That shouldn't happen. But yeah.
Well, yeah. And that leads into, I think, something we've talked about before of like, does the left need to play more like the right in order to get there? But then the very thing that would mean that we would have to be ignoring corruption and all the things that we say is bad. So yeah, I don't know. Do two wrongs make a right?
Fuck yeah.
Yes. Yes. Now, moving from a state level to a federal level, we can start with
where everything's juicy and not boring.
Everything's juicy and it's all interrelated. But we can start with, speaking of not corruption, but probably should be some sort of double standards. We could talk about JobKeeper being misspent. We can talk about, probably need to talk about the response to that, which is Dan Illich. Is that pronounced that correctly? His response to that. And then at a federal level as well, which is interrelated with some of this stuff, is the National Party and their indecision and ineptitude. But I vote we start with JobKeeper.
It's kind of a choose your own adventure of shitheads. Which
exactly right.
Which shitheads do we want to talk about next?
Yeah, I was going to say, we're never in a position where we say, oh, fuck, I don't think the government's done anything cooked for us to talk about this week. Like, fuck, we got to, like, drum up some material.
Yeah,
like, no, we got it.
Here's a dog riding a skateboard. Like, there's never any, like, fluffy kind of filler. It's just like, oh, hey, like, we all got universal childcare, or no, there's nothing like that. There's never any good news stories on this podcast. It's always like, hey, here's some, you're right. It's never been, in the fucking nearly 12 years that we've done this podcast, it's never been a struggle whatsoever to come up with some cooked shit to talk about on the state or federal level. There's always something.
Turns out Donald Trump going out of politics means that we were just unaware of all the stuff that was happening federally.
The geographical location of the cooked shit changed. There was more of a focus on the cooked shit happening in Australian politics rather than just American politics. But there you go. So, Tom, this is your story. So we know that there's been some modeling, some analysis that Treasury, as it turns out, wasted, now depending on who you ask, between $27 to $40 billion on the JobKeeper program. That is obviously not going to be paid back. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about that?
And seemed even worse than that. So how this went, I think there's two prongs to this. There's like the figures themselves and what that means, and then there's also how those figures were communicated. Because, well, let's start with the figures first. So essentially it talks about an assessment of how much was paid out for JobKeeper, and it was something in the realm of, I believe, about $70 billion.
No,
well, the first $70 billion, actually, maybe did it go up to 90?
90 in total, I think, yeah.
Yes, up to 90 billion. Sorry, I'm trying to keep track of the numbers here, so apologies for that. But yeah, like going up to like a $90 billion wage subsidy program is the idea, right? But at first, these numbers sort of showed that of that first 70 billion, maybe about $27 billion worth of that went to businesses that either maintained or increased their profit margins. And as we've talked about a lot before on the show, JobKeeper, as it was kind of happening, they decided to implement it at the start of the pandemic here in Australia. So it was of assumed lost business rather than proven, because
projected losses,
it's projected losses, all that sort of stuff. If you're projecting at least 30% loss of your turnover and earning less than a certain amount of money in the year, etc., people can on a per employee basis get money and then either pass that on to their employees or be using that to maintain the business afloat so they can keep paying their employees in other ways, rather than going straight to the employees, because that would just make more or less sense, apparently. Anyway, so $27 billion.
I would like to, sorry, can I just point out that this wage subsidy, this JobKeeper program, that they didn't even want to do it in the first place. They were dragged kicking and screaming to this wage subsidy by people like Sally McManus. From the union movement, and the left was basically saying like, hey, the whole country is going to be on fire if you don't subsidize people's wages, and everything's going to go to shit. So naturally, from even just like a week or two before the scheme came into effect, where the government was going, no, we're not going to do a UK style wage subsidy. That'd be fucking ridiculous. Anyway, Oh, what is it, Tuesday? Oh, look, here's a wage subsidy. There you go, everybody.
Oh, yeah.
So clearly well thought out.
It's amazing to see just how, even when dragged kicking and screaming into a socialist-esque policy, that they still managed to make it a capitalist nightmare. But yeah, so much of the money, initially $27 billion reported to have gone to businesses that either suffered no losses or actually made record profits.
Gains, like Harvey
over
Norman
that time,
famously.
like record gains. Yeah. So it earned more money than they probably would have had this not been there. So, but that number's actually more like 40 billion, because that 27 billion is only coming from the first 70. And when you extrapolate that percentage, like the sort of the percentage difference of 27 to 70, extrapolated out to the full 90, it comes to be more like 40 billion. So even more crazy. Like, so just dropping $40 billion down the tubes. Now, how this was discovered, or at least communicated by the Treasury Department, is where I find this gets really juicy, because they dropped this report on a Monday. Randomly on a Monday, and I believe an even wilder, crazy story was going on at the time. I think there was a lot of discussion around like climate anger, all this sort of stuff. So it was clearly, I think also sort of around the time of like Gladys's resignation, all this sort of stuff. Like, news cycle was going crazy. So they just dropped this report because they have to. And, obviously a lot of people read it, and on the first few pages, it had all the stuff about the 27 billion out of the 70, etc. And a lot of people reported that. But then I initially saw this in the Financial Review, but yeah, some others have picked up on it now as well, that apparently on page 40, or like at least 40 pages in, is where kind of the numbers, if you really look at them, blows out to 40 billion. But everyone reported it as 27 billion because that's what was at the start of the report.
Yeah, you just go to the executive summary and you go, okay, yeah, that'll do.
Like 40 pages into what I imagine is an extremely dull document.
And this is the most in-depth report we've had thus far. So previously...
these are the reports from the Treasury. And the Treasury is like, from the government. Like, this isn't like just had economists or anything, like looking at this as third parties. This is their figures.
Yeah, we just had budget office data previously, which Labor MP Andrew Lee talked about. We thought it was like about 13 billion. So and before that, it was just about like a couple of articles in the paper about Harvey Norman and stuff. So now, the longer we go on, the worse it's getting.
But didn't I say? Don't you guys remember? I said, when the JobKeeper scheme was announced,
I was like, got a break.
Good, but also get ready for the stories in a year to a year and a half when we're going to be talking about all the cooked shit that happened as a result of this program, people stuffing money into their fucking pockets as a result. And it's, being dubbed dividend keeper by people out on social media, which I think is hilarious. But yeah, that's exactly what it was. All these companies that were forecasting, I forecast I'm going to lose the shirt on me fucking back. Harvey Norman going, mate, turning out his pockets going, man, it's absolutely fucked. I'm going to lose everything. I'm going to be, fucking Harold Norman begging on the street. Everyone's going, yeah, great. Have a fucking bunch of cash. And then everyone's going, oh yeah, turns out we didn't actually. Yeah, it turns out our hysterical forecasting doesn't line up with reality.
Don't worry, just keep it. Just
hang on to it. This government was just chasing fucking people for Centrelink money, making them fucking kill themselves over a couple $100 that they may or may not fucking owe to the government. Orders of, millions of dollars has just gone, no, don't worry about the literal $90 billion wage subsidy, 40% of which may or may not have gone to people who fucking needed it. That you can hang on to. That's totally fine.
And then on top of that, like, it isn't even them saying that's totally fine. Like, you could have they're saying with their actions or lack of words that, it's totally fine because they're not trying to claw it back. They believe it's fine that they've done this. Everyone's favorite treasurer, Josh Frydenberg, has said things like, that people wouldn't have taken up the program if they considered that maybe they would have had to have paid the money back if they didn't end up needing it. Like, they wouldn't have done it, and then people would have lost jobs.
Can we think just for a second? God. Actually, use our brains for a single second and just think about how fucked that circular logic is. If people thought that they would have had to pay the money back if they didn't need it, means that they wouldn't have applied for it. Isn't that correct? Isn't that the desired outcome? Because then that means they didn't need the money. Like, if it turns out, if you did need the money, great. Like, you got the money when you needed it. If it turns out that you didn't need the money, then also great. You didn't need the money. You can pay it back. Like, this whole circular logic of like, they didn't need the money, so they wouldn't have applied for it, the money that they didn't need. It's just like, no, that's good. That's good. That would be good. If they didn't apply for the money that they didn't need and take it out of the government purse for no fucking reason whatsoever, that would have been a positive. That's what we're saying, Josh. That would have been good.
It's almost like the treasurer who basically pushed the scheme, and I mean, I'm sure he didn't come up with it himself, but he would have had input into it. It's almost like that treasurer has to defend the policy that he pushed, no matter what the cost, because it was his policy.
I'm just astounded by the ability of this government to just like live in cognitive dissonance, just like the ability of these people to really believe two contradictory ideas at the same time, all of the time, professionally for $500,000 a year. Like, it astounds me that these people can not spontaneously combust as a result of the contradictory fucking forces in their own brains at all times.
For $500,000 a year, I reckon you can believe a lot of things.
There's that great quote where it's like a man is, reliably not going to believe in something if he's paid to not believe it or something like that. I can't remember the quote, but yeah, if his job is predicated on him believing something, then you can bet he'll believe it.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, if they were going to waste money, now's the time to do it. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, if this had happened...
Yeah, but couldn't they waste it on, like, free healthcare?
Yeah,
well, exactly. I know we have pretty free healthcare, but, like, hey, maybe add dental or mental health services, given everyone's depressed and anxious.
That's the state's responsibility, Tom. It's the state's responsibility to manage localised mental health care. But, look, I mean, I find it hilarious that when this scheme came out, everyone was like, yeah, cool. So the people that are paid to basically con their way out of paying the correct amount of tax, the people that businesses pay to con their way out of paying the correct amount of tax are also the same people that are going to be doing the forecasting for projected losses at the end of the scheme. And everyone was fine with like, yeah, no, it's fine. Tony can definitely do the accounts. Tony's a top bloke. Tony can carry the one, and we'll trust him.
No worries.
And now everyone's like, oh, why is there so much money that's been overpaid?
So weird.
Like, I don't understand how this could possibly
Turns out the leave a penny, take a penny times a billion fucking honor system that we left out the front of Parliament House didn't work out so good. That's so weird that people wrote it.
It's like the accountants are deliberately paid to like obfuscate the books and carry the
job.
one. Literally did that.
The whole reason the accountancy profession exists is to prevent people from paying the correct amount of tax. That is the whole reason that they exist, is to be an intermediary and interface between government and the populace in terms of how much tax they pay, is to mitigate the amount of tax that you as a person pay.
I mean, look, it's one of these things where it's like, to my mind, like last week we were talking, and the week before we were talking about, how money isn't real and that you can borrow as much as you want while interest rates are low. So in some ways it's like, well, does it matter that 40 billion went to businesses if the desired outcome was to just stimulate
it's
the
still
economy?
Stimulus,
but
right?
if it's sitting in Harvey Norman's bank account and it's not really going to the end user, then it doesn't achieve the same desired outcome.
There's a very big difference by like this. It's the whole trickle down economics bullshit idea, which has been debunked for years. Where is the money going? It's not necessarily the amount of money that's going into the economy, because any money that's outside of the government is inside the public sector. Right, so it is a stimulus of some description. But the problem is, if it goes to the top 1%, the people who own stocks and get paid dividends, and like, it's useless, because you as a rich person, you can only eat 3 meals a day. You can only wear one pair of pants at a time. You can only, it doesn't behoove you. It doesn't benefit society at large for the people at the very top to have more than they otherwise did. Whereas if that same amount of money was dispersed towards the people at the bottom, what would they do? Engage in consumption. Which, guess what? Stimulates the economy in real ways. So I don't think it's... I would rather have that money out in the economy, just not in the places where it ended up.
It's
Right.
kind of sad that Donald Trump's like physical check that he mailed to everyone was probably a better idea in some ways.
Best thing he ever did was
than,
send people a check. like legitimate, and so many people like it. You know, it's, I know we're sort of switching topics slightly, but so many like Latino voters in key areas that were talking about there was this big swing in Latino voters against the Democrats and towards Trump. A lot of Latino, yeah, legitimately, they said like Trump signed a check, it had Trump's name on it, and he gave me some cash, so I voted for him. And I was like, well, yeah, fuck. Like, turns out, you know, all the ins and outs of policy and, you know, all the policy wonkiness and that sort of shit that we get bogged down in day to day matters much less than like, did I get a check that was signed by fucking Donald Trump? Okay, I'll vote for that guy. Like, it's well, at the end of the day, politics
is all about priorities.
Sometimes pretty simple. Like
yeah, it's all about the priorities. Like, you know, whenever people say like, oh, but what are they going to do for me?
Yes.
And it's like, oh, yep, all right. I needed stimulus and they gave it to me.
Yes.
So they did a thing for me.
Yes.
That's good in my books. I'll vote for that guy.
Yeah, and they're like, this new
Can't
era
blame
of,
them for that.
You know, there was
Can't blame me on that.
There was this report that came out that was debated by Ezra Klein, you know, a big sort of policy wonk recently, where they're talking about, you know, what the Democrats need to do is the new theory of politics is popularism, you know, doing things that are popular and talking about things that are popular in order to garner support. And I was like, yeah, what have we been doing this whole time? Aren't you just describing
what
politics?
What is democracy?
It's just like doing the things that the people that elected you want you to do and that are popular. Like, you are just literally describing what democracy is doing things for the people you serve. They're like, here's this crazy new idea. Why don't we do things for these people that elected us, and then they might want us to elect them again? Crazy. The quote that I was looking for earlier was from Upton Sinclair. It is difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends on his not understanding it, which may as well be the quote that they put on Josh Frydenberg's fucking tombstone.
He's the best treasurer we've ever had. No, he's not. But look, at the end of the day, JobKeeper has achieved its desired outcome. But
Josh, is that you?
Even a broken clock is right 6 times a day.
It's the difference between, like, you know, you go to uni, okay, and you're like, I mean, P's get degrees, right? Like, P's do get degrees. But at the end of the day,
also could be on Josh Frydenberg's headstone.
If I get a P, I'm probably like, I'd be much less happy with that than if I got a HD or a D, which is HD being huge dick and D being just a dick, but otherwise known as a high distinction and distinction.
Right, so, I was going to say, wow, I'd better call the uni. They need to change my academic record. What's this distinction bullshit?
It'd be much preferable to get a distinction or a high distinction rather than just a pass on matters of $40 billion or more.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that this government, this LNP government, takes the same approach to governing as I do my master's degree, which is just like, just got to get through it, man. Just got to just submit the assignments. Doesn't matter what's in them. Literally just legitimately need to get 51% so I can keep fucking moving.
And isn't it kind of weird? So I'm kind of just pulling this from memory. I don't have all the numbers in front of me, but I remember last year we were ripping Josh Frydenberg a new one, among all the other reasons why everyone should be ripping Frydenberg a new one at all times.
And it works.
And it works. It's great.
We solved democracy.
I hope he's miserable. Yeah. That everyone was making jokes of like finding $60 billion behind the couch because they were like, you know, they did all their calculations of how much JobKeeper is going to cost them, and then it's like, oh shit, actually no, it'll cost 60 billion less.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, ha ha, they just found 60 billion behind the couch. I was like, well, no, it's because they haven't spent it yet, but you know, the sentiment's still sort of there. So wait a minute. So are they saying not only was JobKeeper going to cost 60 billion less than they thought, it actually could have cost even 40 billion less than that later number.
Yeah.
So really, it could have cost 100 billion less than they thought.
Yes.
100 billion, or, you know, just enough to fill my little
100 billion or
piggy bank,
or one submarine program.
Or one submarine program.
One submarine
or jet fighter program, depending on which you prefer.
We got to measure all of our government spending now in terms of how many submarine programs we buy. That's 0.8 of a submarine program.
Well, they fucking love buying them, so it's clearly valuable to them.
It's actually not a bad way of measuring national spending, to be honest.
Oh,
Is
mate,
like
that's
how many submarine
3.7 submarine programs. That's crazy.
It's a lot of money. But look, in the best interest of democracy, there are still dissenting voices, just like ours, that are out there and calling things as they are. And one of those people is Dan Ilic, comedian Dan Ilic, who went over and above this week. Tom, I believe this was your little story, maybe?
Oh, Dan Ilic has been running a campaign for a while now that is referred to as JokeKeeper, keeping on the theme of JobKeeper, because it has it's a several-pronged approach where what initially sort of began as, hey, Scott Morrison he hadn't confirmed that he was at that point yet, but he has now.
He's busy.
Might be going to Glasgow, where the COP26 climate summit's happening. And, Australia is a laughing stock of the world when it comes to our climate inaction. But of course, we try to obfuscate all that bullshit around speeches and all that kind of crap.
Quick
which
aside,
we get called out heaps.
Literally the royal family was asked about this. Prince Philip, someone was interviewing Prince Philip.
Prince Charles, Philip's very dead, George.
Dead.
I know it's easy to forget because he looked like he'd been very dead for a while. But
Prince Philip reportedly
future
still
king.
Dead. Prince Charles was interviewed about it, and he said, Scott Morrison says he doesn't know whether he's going to attend, and he just shot. And Prince Charles just shot him this greasy look, and he's just like, yes, well,
Is that what he said?
Something like that. Yeah. So, and even the Queen was overheard saying, they're talking about politicians in general, but in reference to Scott Morrison, they always talk about stuff, but they don't do stuff. So even the royal family's having a fucking go at ScoMo for not going to COP26.
So Dan Ilic came up with the idea and started raising funds for it and stuff, with the idea of, how about if he goes to Glasgow, we will put up a whole bunch of billboards. We'll pay for billboards to be up in Glasgow that are openly ripping into Australia's climate inaction and cutting through the bullshit that ScoMo would no doubt be peddling while he was there.
Yes.
It really took off, getting to the point where they're now actually planning to be putting up billboards in the electorates of incumbent coalition MPs in the upcoming election cycle.
That would be probably more effective from a political standpoint, to be honest.
Well, potentially. But then also they made so much money that he decided, you know what? What about we put our messages on the largest billboard in Times Square, referred to as Godzilla.
Yes.
The Godzilla billboard. I didn't know that there was a billboard referred to as Godzilla. That's amazing.
It's actually pronounced Gojira.
I don't think in the American English. That's
pretty
probably
sure.
a bit dicey.
Pretty sure it's Gojira.
But so wanting to put it on the Godzilla billboard, and so it was amazing. The announcement also was great because he was like, all right, we're going to put it up on the biggest billboard in Times Square for 10 minutes. Because even a runaway success of this campaign, how much it would cost to be published on those billboards must be insane.
A lot of money.
A huge amount of money. So they got 10 minutes of shame is what a lot of the news outlets were referring to it as. But it happened the other day. I think it was Thursday morning our time, around 9:45 in the morning. So it was about 6:45 at night in New York. There was a takeover of the Godzilla billboard with a whole bunch of cool billboards just ripping into all the bullshit that Australia's been peddling for so long.
It
was
said
net zero. Net zero by 2300 with a kangaroo on fire. There was one that just said, dear world, we're sorry for all the bullshitting our government does, signed Australia. There was Colophile Dundee goes to Glasgow with a really good, photoshopped ScoMo in the Crocodile Dundee sort of outfit. Matt Canavan attends New York Colacon, was also a favorite of mine. It was fantastic, and it just went off all over the internet. Dan Ilic got interviewed on CNN. That was cool, and was amazing at, I think, getting across his points just about what they were trying to do, while also being funny and silly about it. But I thought raising the great point because he was being interviewed by Jake Tapper, huge journalist in the state. And Jake Tapper asked him of like, are you worried that politicians are going to be like dismissing your points because you are using humor to do so? And they'll be like, oh, they're just jokes and use that against you. And Dan Ilic made the point, which I think is really, really poignant, which is that the billboards aren't there to talk to the politicians. The billboards are there to talk to everyone else.
Yes.
Like to show everyone else that our leaders are not representing
leading our leaders was the phrase that I really liked. It's like having to drag them kicking and screaming, basically.
Because also, as Dan Ilic pointed out, which I'll give him this, even though maybe it's a stretch, but I'll give him this, that at the time the billboards went live in New York, ScoMo was still undecided as to whether or not he was going to COP26, as the Queen and Prince Charles took umbrage with. But by 2 o'clock that afternoon, he was going. So
is he confirmed now? Is that locked in?
Yeah, he said it. He said, that afternoon.
Turns out
within 5 hours of the billboards going up.
Turns out he freed up his schedule. Turns out taking the dog to the vet. Maybe someone else could do that. Maybe I should address the greatest moral challenge of our generation instead.
So the billboards in Glasgow are definitely going ahead. So that'll be a fun time.
So
what was your tweet, Tom, that had the pictures?
Oh, I think someone sent Dan Ilic just a photo from, because there were people on the ground in New York taking pictures, or someone got a good screenshot from one of the live streams they have up there, which showed one of the billboards. So I just thought innocuously I'd just share that and say, like, you're paying attention, ScoMo, and like tagged him in it and called him a fucking twat. And then Will Anderson caught wind of it and shared it, and then my inbox blew up. So that was a fun day.
At least you didn't take that opportunity to tell him to eat your asshole, as you normally do when making statements about Scott Morrison.
It didn't even occur to me. Fuck, I should have.
Yeah, missed opportunity.
I should have said, hey, if you're not going to Glasgow, your schedule's free. Come here and eat my ass.
I mean, you could always reply to your own tweet. Is that something you can do?
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
That's true. That's true. I could, but that won't get the same reach.
Oh, no.
So, many people will miss it. So it's all right. I'll get him one day. Maybe one day I'll see him in person and be like, hey, Scotty, would you mind eating my asshole, you fucking twat?
It's been a good week for Twitter. I had a tweet today which went a little bit viral for me. 170 retweets, which I was pretty happy about. So this is talking about
you guys.
Yeah, I know. It's where influencers are.
Humble brag on our viral tweet part of the show.
I did my little guide to political disaster before, so you can
that was good. That was solid.
Yeah, these are all our social media highlights.
This is hey guys, we did real good. I got a shitload of dopamine off Twitter this week. Have a look. So this is the tweet. So given the fact that the ACT has hit 99% first dose, can we dispense with this horseshit idea of vaccine hesitancy? Turns out Aussies wanted to get vaccinated all along. There was just no supply from the federal government, and they cooked the messaging on AstraZeneca. #Ozpol.
Yeah.
And
on the ACT.
Yeah.
Home
which is massive,
represent.
By the way. The fact that there's like 99 point something % of over 12s or over 16s, over 12s have gotten their first dose in Canberra is fucking incredible. Like an actually amazing achievement. And the fact that both New South Wales and Victoria are on track to do over 90% vaccination of over 16
first
adults.
Dose.
First dose is fucking incredible. Like, it really, I feel like we were all gaslit for a good 6 months. The federal government's just going, go get your vaccines, you fucking, why aren't you getting your vaccines? And I go, don't get the vaccine, I'll give you fucking blood clots. And go, get your vaccine, why aren't you vaccinated? And just like, oh, you can't actually, we're not going to allow you to get vaccinated. And then just kind of like, it was this weird abusive relationship that we were in for a good 6-12 months. And it's like, it turns out the vaccines arrive, everyone goes and gets them immediately because we want this to be fucking done. It wasn't about, vaccine hesitancy or overcoming, like, Aussies
a bad comms campaign.
Yeah, it was literally just
and a bad supply and demand situation.
Get us the vaccines and tell people to take the vaccines. Aussies are actually not the 0.3% of anti-vaxxer fuckwits that you see being loud online and on the streets. Like, most people are actually sane, rational people and will do the right thing if you let them. Like, it wasn't our fault. We were right all along. It was ScoMo was Kobayashi the whole time. No, was it Kobayashi?
You mean Kaiser Soze? I didn't know if you were reaching. Yeah, I didn't know if you were reaching
was the name on the mug.
Yeah, I didn't know if you were reaching for the classic.
Is it off?
Oh my
God,
I've forgotten the name of the movie. The Usual Suspect.
Usual Suspect.
Yeah. Wow, I know the reference more than I know the title of the damn movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh no! Well, it was whether or not I wanted to bring this up. Speaking of the 0.3% or whatever anti-vax fuckheads. I tell you guys about the Crystal Shop down the road.
Yeah, yes. Not on the show.
Not on the show.
But yeah.
Oh, yeah, because I told you guys, I think on the show I'd
down
mentioned them before because they had their little chalkboard sign they'd put up out the front that says, yes, we are allowed to be open, because clearly they've heard everyone scoffing and thinking they shouldn't be open as they walk past, myself included.
Clearly, mate, where the fuck am I going to get my amethyst and quartz crystals, okay? Obviously, it's an essential service. Where am I going to get a healing energy, bro? You fucking idiot. How else am I supposed? It's a pandemic. You're going to deny me my healing energy? That's a human right. That's Reiki, you fuckwit.
Oh, well, no, don't say that near the shop, George, because they're closed at the moment and have instead changed their front window into like a billboard of their own research, quote unquote, of articles full of crap talking about how face irritation for kids wearing masks in school or some other bullshit. But every time they referred to the pandemic in any of their signs, it was in quotation marks, George. So don't say there's a pandemic on and you can't get your crystals, because the pandemic's not real, apparently. They even had
Are you telling me
the amount of times in the past year that they've had the cops called on them for being open? And I was like, wow, like so petty. Oh, well,
are you telling me the shop that peddles in make-believe stones?
Well, the stones
somehow
are real.
Doesn't believe
the health properties are advocated.
The stones are real, and I don't want to be shitting on people's spirituality. That's fine, but
don't get me wrong. I love a piece of rose quartz, right? Love a bit of malachite.
Yeah, not to shit on people's spirituality, but yeah, it's very much like oh no, the crystal shop's taking a stand. Oh shit.
Yeah, believe it or not, the crystal shop and the just asking questions guy, same guy. Believe it or not.
And see, I would have been more sympathetic to them in their arguments of, because some of the arguments around like, yes, we're allowed to be open, were that they're providing health services like acupuncture, which acupuncture, I'm not fully up on its essential service status and stuff like that. I think it is Medicare claimable at least, so there's a medical sort of aspect to that. Sure, I don't know what kind of qualifications you need to be doing at X, Y, and Z, but I'd be more sympathetic of them being like, oh no, you should be allowed to be open to be providing that service if you had, like, were wearing masks indoors and like all the other kind of rules that you could be abiding by to allow you to trade. But no, you're all about my freedom and not wearing that mask. So no, you're full of shit.
I wonder if
I hope you never reopen.
The crystal shop and national voters.
Maybe.
Anyway.
Adam, we've discussed this many times before. It's not an effective segue if you then say the word segue.
But what if I say it in a weird way that makes it sound like it's not just me saying segue? If I go segue.
Look, if you say it in a weird way, no, all right. No? If you make it a jingle, I'll allow it.
Okay, segue. So the Nationals.
That's your jingle? That's not catchy. I'm not going to be singing that 20 years from now when I remember a jingle from an ad from when I was little.
And then, a jingle is a minimum 5 seconds. Segue, the ways that change the seg. I don't know, something.
Yeah, like, we all know 13006550506. Still.
Loopmobile will come to you. 30, 32. That's 30,
right.
30, 32.
I still remember the Watch This Roof jingle, and that business turned out to be like a huge corrupt scandal that kept like ripping people off on roofing. But the ad was fucking amazing.
It's a good ad. You can't.
Anyway,
this is what we're saying. The value of a good comms plan is second to none.
Yeah, you can still do all your corrupt shit if you've got a good comms plan.
So,
if only Scotty from marketing understood that.
Well, look, Scotty from marketing, obviously one of the reasons we've got to give context to why he was umming and ahhing about going to Glasgow. And there's this little old party in Australia called the Nationals Party.
Doesn't ring any bells.
No. It turns out they're part of this thing called the Coalition, which is
No.
actually what forms our government. There's several ministers
I don't know.
from that party who are actually forming, they tell you what to do, basically. They inform policy and that kind of thing.
They're minority partner in the coalition.
Yeah.
But they're the ones actually
they are
in
the
charge.
smaller.
Okay, that's weird.
Although they are kind of in charge because the Liberals can't
without
do
them,
without
everyone's not in Parliament.
Yeah.
So they have to appease them. They need them to be the majority.
Cool.
We've talked about this last week and the week before, but basically the reason why, I think most people in the Liberal Party have sort of heard the winds of change blowing, and they've sort of gone, "Oh, maybe we need to probably."
It's not the winds of change. It's that they're shitting their pants over a bunch of inner city Liberal seats that are now what were otherwise blue ribbon safe Liberal seats are now sort of looking like they might be really competitive. Not because Labor fucking managed to. Not Labor's actually lost vote share as a result of all of this, but because of course they have. But it's because of these independent, voices of movements that are polling really well because of their stated action around climate change. And so a bunch of inner city Liberal seats think, fuck, my safe Liberal seat is not looking so safe. I guess we need to pull our thumbs out and actually do something about this climate change thing, which is great for the Liberal Party, but not so great for the Nationals, who
not if Matt Canavan can allow it.
Not if Matt Canavan is too busy humping a giant human-shaped piece of coal in the corner of the party room. But
so when's COP26? COP26 is what, next week or something?
Coming up, yeah.
So the Nationals. This is an article you shared, which is by David Spears, who we greatly respect on this podcast. But the Nationals themselves, for the people that are all like, we've got to think about the people, the farmers and the coal humpers and the industries around the Queensland. And
I saw a great cartoon this week where it was two, Barnaby and I know some other member of the Nationals walking past each other and sort of tipping their hats, and they got these big Akubras on, and they sort of tip their hats. And you see underneath they're wearing minus hats. Underneath, I was just like, that is absolutely the Nationals Party to a T. We're for farmers 100%, except for when we're for the miners, which is all the time.
Except all our donations, which definitely come from
just big
coal.
Just big independent farmers.
But they haven't communicated a consistent policy on what they would like
in exchange for action on climate change. You mean?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yep. So Scott Morrison, while we're bagging him out, the Liberal Party is kind of sitting here going, you guys need to fucking do something about this because it's going to fuck us all. It's going to fuck everyone. If Matt Canavan just sits there with his dick putting a bit of coal on it.
It's just an American Pie, except replace Matt Canavan with Jason Biggs and the pie with a lump of coal. I love that even when the Liberal Party does the right thing, they do it for the completely wrong reasons. It's not because they've had some grand awakening. The Murdoch media recently ran some 16-page spread about, climate action and, in the lead up to COP26. And it's great, where the fuck have you guys been for 2 decades? Everyone all of a sudden is, seeing the light around climate change, but it's not because they actually believe it's a problem. It's because the political incentives have changed for them specifically. And so they're like, fuck, if we're going to keep our jobs, then we need to do something about climate change. It's even when they do the right thing, it's for the wrong reasons. It's just...
Reference that quote that you had before about
the Upton Sinclair one. Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing that I find hilarious about this is that Barnaby Joyce, so Michael McCormick, the reasonable one...
Yes.
was ousted because he wasn't standing up to the coalition, to the Liberal Party. And now we've got Barnaby tomato-faced Joyce in there who can't articulate. He can't wrangle his party. He's just as ineffective as McCormick because no one can agree on anything. Little Proud saying one thing, you got Canavan saying another. You've got other people, popping ideas up there. Oh, maybe we'll have some inland rail. Maybe we'll have we'll have a fund to give to the farmers, and we can't agree on the amount that we'd have to give to the farmers if we wanted that. So this is all counting down. COP26. I need to look at the date. When is it?
It's in a couple of weeks. And the all
Isn't that
likelihood
like-
is that Scott Morrison is going to turn up with nothing more than his dick in his hands. Like he has
and he's gonna
nothing to
waffle
show
some
for
bullshit that sounds like maybe we're doing stuff, but actually we're not because we're kind of cheating the numbers, which was another point of Dan Illich's.
Mm.
But it's like, yeah, the sole reason we're able to be getting away with this is because we cheat, and yeah,
It's
so yeah, it'll be a whole bunch of bullshit.
it just turns up at COP26 and goes gas-led recovery? Question mark. It's something gas.
And like, no wonder he doesn't want to go because he hasn't got anything to be able to say.
Could you imagine if there was any like a job that we had to do
It's
where
the
there was
31st of October.
there was
It's
an
in
uncomfortable thing that you had to do in your
2
job,
weeks.
and you were just like, I'm just not going to do that because I don't want to. That makes me uncomfortable, and I'm not going to do that thing. Thanks though. I'll still take the public money, but I'm just not going to do that
naturally.
because it hurts my
So
feelings.
this thing, like probably the most important global summit of the last 30 years or something.
Yeah.
Like, because if they don't get it right now, they can't kick the can down the road. It's done. It's in 2 weeks. Now, the Nationals, apparently are meeting today. So we might hear some. This is already old news. We'll probably be outdated tomorrow when there's a press release. Assuming the Nationals can come to some sort of consensus.
Tomorrow, Barnaby's going to come out, humping a solar panel instead of a piece of coal. And he goes, I'm saying this is my third marriage is with this solar panel.
But if they can't, like if there isn't an announcement tomorrow where they've obviously agreed on something, if the Nationals can't get their shit together, then what the fuck? Like, we're fucked. We're all fucked.
Yeah.
Anyway.
You won't find any argument from me.
Like, we're all fucked on that note.
It really is a situation where like the ship has well and truly sailed. Like the Nationals Party, 40,000 voters in a couple of, in a handful of seats across the Australian electorate, which represent a minority opinion on a subject, is going to dictate policy for Australia. And like, we have literally become the laughing stock of the world as a result. Like it is just such a, I don't know. Does it show the weakness of democracy that we're just like...
It does a bit.
Like there's a handful of people and a handful of seats get to dictate policy about whether the world's going to be set on fire for the rest of us. Like, it's so broken.
And like, they're led by a guy who is probably the most inept fuckwit like that I've ever... Apart from like Anthony... what's his name? Malcolm Roberts and a few other different people that have been in power for the last sort of 6 years or have been in and out of Parliament. He's one of the most inept fuckwits I've ever met. But you can't kill him. He's just this guy who will not politically die. He's taken that guide that I've written and he's like, he's the one that's based on.
Political zombie, as soon as you think he's buried, his hand shoots out of the dirt. It's not over. He's always coming back.
I mean, you could, at least like with McCormick, you could turn around on the global stage and be like, look at this guy is wearing a suit and looks like he's well educated.
He was a lovable fuckwit. You know what I mean? Like he was, he was wrong about everything, but it seemed like there was a human being there at the center of this. Whereas Barnaby Joyce is just like
McCormick
screaming. He's a piece of shit. Well, don't get me wrong. I disagree with
McCormick was a huge piece of shit, but we only heard from him when Scotty was out of the country.
Right. And he would just say dumb shit, and we'd be like, Michael, you're such a fucking moron. You're so dumb, Michael.
But my point being is, when you look at him, you go, okay, he's well presented. You look at Barnaby, and he looks like he's about to have a heart attack every 45 seconds.
Barnaby looks like...
And this is the guy that's dictating the policy for the national fucking climate
always
change.
looks like Elvis having a heart attack on the toilet. That's how Barnaby looks all the time. It's amazing that he's still alive. I imagine that at some point during this process, it would have burst a fucking blood vessel in his head and just collapsed. But he manages to keep trundling on. It's kind of incredible when you think about it.
Yeah, it's pretty
crazy.
I just don't understand. Just name your price, Barnaby. Just come back with as much fucking pork barreling. Get all the fucking irrigation plans. Get your fucking completely useless railway between Toowoomba and Gladstone. Like, just name just whatever you want. Just fucking Nationals dream list of just name your fucking price. Just say the things that you want. And this government will they will fucking Aladdin the shit out. They will make your dreams come true and take you on a magic carpet ride. You just need to tell them whatever the fuck you want. Just say what you want.
If they could overspend $40 billion on a national, what's it called, welfare scheme, then they can probably afford whatever you want.
a railway that doesn't make sense without coal as a marginal utility and it's needs coal going for the next 100 years for it to be a feasible project. Yeah, no worries. Have a fucking useless railway. Here's your useless railway. Have it.
Murray-Darling plan. Like if you want, you could just get your fist right back in there and just have another go at it.
Whatever you want. What do you want, Barnaby? Do you want a third? We'll get you a third wife. Even younger. What do you want, Barnaby? What do you want? What do you really want? We're here to make your dreams come true, mate.
Pistol and Boo on a platter.
That's what he wants. If you want Johnny Depp's dogs, we'll fucking get you Johnny Depp's dogs. What do you want, mate? Tell me what you want.
Oh, God. Anyway. So, I don't know if I can be bothered talking about China's debt crisis.
We've been putting this story off.
About to collapse.
Well, yeah. We've been wanting to talk about this story for several weeks and it never comes up because either Tom's yelling about the $1 trillion coin or I'm yelling about Barnaby Joyce. But China's property sector might be collapsing. So,
yeah, which may have effects globally, but we'll wait and see.
It's not good.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound good.
I mean, it turns out, George, if you completely fund a bunch of urban growth on debt for 20, 30 years, at some point you have to pay that debt off.
No, I don't think so. It is, there's a whole economics explained video going into the crisis a little bit, which people should definitely watch. It's not good.
So Evergrande, which are basically the biggest property developer.
Is it Evergrande or Evergrande?
Evergrande. Oh, Grande.
Evergrande.
Evergrande. Whatever. Basically, in summary, they are the biggest property developer in China. They employ tens of thousands of people, and they are really in debt. To the point of sort of, their repayments are something like 150 million in terms of coupon repayments that they didn't pay the other day.
Which was their third repayment that they'd missed, and everyone's just like, "Hey, what's going on, buddy?"
There's a deadline which is coming up where it will be formally declared default, which is tomorrow.
Cool.
So
So by the time you've downloaded this podcast, the world economy might be on fire. Watch out for that. We probably should have led with that.
And there are a bunch of other developers.
But this podcast is free, so don't have to worry about it. Don't have to pay for it.
Download that sweet nonsense interiors.
The video from Economics Explained on YouTube is called "Why You Should Be Worried About China's Debt Crisis," and it's real bad.
I mean, some people think there are some economists that are saying, "Oh, well, it's China and it's sort of insulated." But even if it's
getting real 2007 vibes off those fucking economists. Let me tell you what, mate, it's just a couple of mortgages. There's no worry. We'll rebound in 2 minutes. It'll be fucking great.
Even if it's just China, that's still the largest population in the world. Like we're talking, even if like in terms of a utilitarian perspective, we're talking millions and millions of people that potentially may, be either out of work, not have a roof over their head, or investors that have lost their life savings. It is
so crazy. The video goes into this, but just to quickly summarize, men can't get because of this one child policy that they had in China. There's an oversupply of men, right? An undersupply of marriageable women, and so table stakes for getting a wife is having a house. So everyone needs a house. The median income to house price in China is 48x, which is insane. And it's also one of the major ways that people build wealth. So it's the Chinese stock market has been sort of notoriously dubious. Whereas you can buy a house and reliably what you pay for that house is going to be more tomorrow than it is today. So people sink their life savings into these houses, trying to ride the asset bubble essentially up to wealth, even to the extent where they've placed capital controls, which has just made things worse. You can only have a certain amount of houses within a single family unit, and people have gotten divorced. There's people that are getting divorced from each other. So they're like, oh, we're two separate households, so we can each have a house. So we can, it's just this insane fucking speculative bubble that's been pumped up by the government for years. And now everything they're doing to control it is actually actively making it worse, which is really interesting. So
the thing is, if the government bails Evergrande out, there's then a list of, it sets a precedent, right?
Yes.
Then there's a list of 30 other developers that have, or not 30, there's about 12 on this list here.
There's a list where they're like, hey, watch these payments which are coming in. So October 15, Shimao, October 18, Cynic, November 8th, Central China Real Estate, 400 million. If these payments don't go through on these dates, it might be the signal of a fucking impending financial apocalypse. So, yeah, watch out for that.
Yeah. Maybe they'll invade Taiwan to
well, legitimately though, I think people are going, sucked in China, suck eggs, you pricks. Like, but this is when countries are at their most dangerous, is when things are collapsing internally. Desperate. And you've got and you've got a communist party. There's no other party to turn to. You can go, oh, these guys are fuckheads. They've ruined everything. We're going to vote for the other guy. There is no other guy. So like, you got to point the finger somewhere. And where's the finger going to be pointed? It's going to be pointed at, let's, invade Taiwan. That'll help whip up nationalist sentiment.
Jingle the cheese.
Yeah, it really is like, hey, look over here at the show. Yeah. The economy is exploding. These houses.
Argentina did the same thing with the Falklands back in the 80s.
Yeah, it's wagging the dog. You're whipping up nationalist sentiment to distract from other things. I think it is entirely possible that, this is the second order effects of the coronavirus starting to show through, this effect on manufacturing and debt and housing, and it's starting to peek through in these other areas now, where you might kick off actual geopolitical conflict as a result of the factors that have been induced by coronavirus. So, it's real bad.
Yeah. Well, we'll enjoy that.
Have fun with that. If we're back next week and the financial apocalypse hasn't kicked off yet, then that's also good. On that note, we are, and we always will be Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Make sure you follow us on all the bullshit social medias that have, do, or ever will exist. That's Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Unnatural Show. Make sure you follow our fantastic Twitter social media profiles at George Tsipos.
You can follow me on Twitter at Tom D. Heath.
You can follow me on Instagram at AC Dream.
And please remember to rate and review the show. It helps new people find us. And that would be nice if it ever happened. Thanks for listening, guys. Love your faces. And we'll see you next week. $1 trillion coin.